Yeah, well, this is Baruch here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and we're learning right now and continuing on our lesson from Likutei Moharan. We had a tremendous lesson yesterday in regards to how the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, which is the light of nothing, becomes something as a result of it being clothed over and over and over again. And the Pirush over here brought us through in English in the idea of how exactly they work through the 10 spheros, and each set of 10 spheros is a system of lights called a partsuf. There are several partsufim, or there are 5 partsufim in any universe. There are many universes. We can go through all different aspects of that. But here we're talking about the song. The song of a person who is worthy, the song of a person who is not. So here he says, I think we're over here, and he said like this, speaking about song, and this is one of the things I think mostly when I think about Rebbe Nachman, I think about the music that comes from his Torah. He says, at midnight, a cry goes out. The night, which signifies judgment and gevuros, because we had said in the previous shir that the daytime is a time of chesed, of kindness, because there the gevuros are suppressed, has 2 parts, before and after midnight. This is a basic Torah here that he's teaching us in Kabbalah. The initial period of the night is the harsher half. It's a time when the klipos have access to higher levels and draw greater nourishment. Were this to continue, if it was continued unchecked, the forces of the other side would become extremely powerful and adversely affect the creation even more than they already have. Because after all, the world in which we live in is a world which has, let's say, sin in it. And if the judgment of those sins were going to continue to go on and not be able to be ameliorated in any way, how could the world continue? However, the process by which the klipos nurse and gain strength, the same process also lures them into being ensnared in the lower realm. This happens at Chatzos. Now, let me read this again. He says, were this to continue unchecked, the forces of the other side would become extremely powerful and adversely affect the creation even more than they already have. However, the process of which the klipos nurse and gain strength, so the ability for them to, they have to go to Malchus. That's Malchus is the opening at the bottom. It's the weakest place. But he says that same process also lures them into being ensnared in the lower realm. Now, when did this happen? Now, this is a concept I don't think I've ever seen before. He wants to say that the klipos are trapped at a certain time. This happens at midnight, Chatzos, when the first traces of Chesed's light begin to manifest in the world. So it's an easing of the din. And then the beginning, the root of kindness starts then. As a result, the klipot cry out at midnight at the time they become entrapped. Now let's go over here and see what this says. So let's read the Likutei Moharan. He writes like this, the Rebbe writes, when midnight comes, a cry goes out. As birds are caught in a trap, so are the children of man ensnared. Okay, and if the singer is wicked, then when a person hears him and is attracted by his singing, he too becomes trapped in that evil snare, as it is written in the Zohar, so are the children of man ensnared. Let's go back a little bit more. Let's see, there's more Pirush, so let's read it. As the children of man are ensnared, the children of man ensnared. Those people who are associated with these 2 birds, those are the 2 birds of the klipos, draw their nourishment from the klipa. Their choice of this source of nourishment causing them to become trapped in their evil desires and lusts. So he says there's a choice there. Listening to a wicked singer who draws from these 2 birds and listening to profane songs is therefore detrimental to serving God. Moreover, the strengthening of Malchus, that is the Malchus of the other side, invariably adds strength to the klipos. On the physical level, this results in corrupt kingdoms and governments growing stronger and the exile being extended. Now, this is really important to see what's going on in the year that we're in May 2023, and the corruption of the government that we see around us is tremendous, and it's growing stronger. At the same time, we're becoming more confused about who we are. We're not, as I once heard Mayor Kahana say, not one of my favorite speakers, but he says, who are we? We're not some lost tribe of Portuguese fishermen. That was his quote. We're the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We're somebody else. Conversely, through a song that is holy, the Malchus of holiness is uplifted and elevated so that God's kingdom is revealed in the world. He says it from a Sefer Mein Anachon. Thus King David, the personification of Malchus of holiness, rose from sleep to the sound of song. At midnight the harp that's hung above his bed began playing on its own, and he would awake. In his words, as the psalmist, awake my glory, awake, O harp and lyre. This is actually a quote translated in English. I will awaken the dawn. So the glory will awaken the dawn. And that's a song. After praying, he would spend the rest of the night in study. For nighttime study corresponds to rectified song, because nobody knows you're doing it, and as a result of that, you're not showing off anything. You're not getting involved in the klipa and the falseness. As the personification of Malchus of holiness, it was most fitting that King David also said, at midnight I will arise. So the Purish says, why specifically midnight? What can we learn about midnight? So he knows that Malchus corresponds to night, because Malchus is the sphera that has nothing within it. It has no light within it. It's empty. Why not another hour of the night? However, the rectification of Malchus starts specifically then when the judgments are stayed and loving kindness begins to be revealed. Is the Zohar over here? Elsewhere, the Zohar teaches that the entrapment and defeat of the klipos at midnight is mainly on account of those who rise and study Torah at that time. This will become clearer from the next paragraphs. So the last thing he said was the concept of being ensnared. In review, he says, listening to the singing of a virtuous person is beneficial to serving God. Listening to the singing of a wicked person is the opposite, it's detriment. The reason is that the song, which corresponds to prophecy, stems from the two spheros, the lower two spheros of the body of Zer Anpin, which are called Netzach and Hod. The two spheros, one on the right side, one on the left, they're like corresponding, let's say, to the place of the kidneys. And two sephira that nurse Malchus, these are the two spheros that directly feed Malchus, Chochmah and Bina. A person is sustained by the vitality he receives from one of the two manifestations of Malchus. Commensurate with his deeds, he draws either from the Malchus of holiness or the Malchus of the other side. So, let's go on. Oh, that's the shear here. Oh, we can read a little bit more. So, the little bit more says like this. The remedy which makes it possible to listen to the voice of any individual without being harmed is studying the oral Torah at night. Now, once again, when he means night, he's talking about after midnight. He's talking when the klipos are subdued and the beginning, now you have the beginning of light to start. This is the root of light. This refers to the Talmud, which is an aspect of night. So therefore, since the Talmud is considered the oral Torah, is the aspect of nighttime. It is brought in the Midrash, when Moshe was on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights, he had no way of knowing whether it was day or night, except that when he was when he was learning or he was taught the written Torah, he knew that it was daytime, and when he was taught the oral Torah, he knew it was night. So we see then that the oral Torah is an aspect of night. As our sages taught, he seated me in dark places. This is a place where you could begin. This is the Babylonian Talmud, and it is written, and the darkness he called night. That's a shir here, the second shir in this series on the third Torah of Rebbe Nachman ben Fege, the Breslev Rebbe.